Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Russ and Adam Show. I'm Russ Highness, and with me,
Adam Jackson.
well, I believe this week you had something for me.
I did, yeah. I wanted to show you something you may or may not be aware of.
Okay.
It goes back to actually 1599.
Wow, a few years ago.
A few years ago. So back in 1599, in Italy, parents of small boys began to castrate their children in a hope to make them singing superstars. To bring wealth and fame to the family.
Shit.
Yes, actually.
Okay.
Yep, they removed the testicles. They cut the testicles off. They would use these little shears. They had these little special shears they would use. They'd heat them up to red hot. And that would just cut the testicles off and seal it up in one foul swoop.
Nice, clean break.
Yeah, obviously this is, how can a child of that age give consent to something like that?
Yeah.
And the impact that it would have on the rest of their life is
Fuck.
significant, yeah.
Yeah.
They grow up being very, very pale, extremely pale, because the lack of testosterone reduces the blood flow. They end up with very long limbs. Their bones don't fuse on the end. Their chest and their limbs become very long. They become very tall. Obviously, their voice is high. It doesn't break like a man's voice. So they're these big, tall, pale guys with no facial hair that have very high voices. And you know what? They're not going to be able to get a partner. They're not going to have children. That they can't have families. So, and during the 1800s, up to about 100,000 of these people were castrated. Yeah, and out of those, only a handful became successful. So think about that.
What a waste.
I know. So you can imagine, even the ones that became successful, they resented their parents so much they wouldn't give any of their wealth to their parents anyway. Almost like when you think of Michael Jackson, how he resented his dad, and when he became famous, he didn't acknowledge his father or give back to his father in that respect. Wow. Times that by 100, because it's not just bringing a child up and taking away their childhood, but it's ruining their whole life by
robbing them of their manhood, essentially.
Absolutely, and they grow up essentially to be freaks. Just in a hope that they'll be famous, almost like Hollywood, the way parents give their children cosmetic surgery and want them to be actors, and only a very, very small percentage make it, where the rest of them are kind of like on Skid Row sort of thing. It sounds like a crazy thing. It sounds like a very extreme thing, and it is. But the rewards for being successful were very high. They became in their time like rock stars. There's one singer called Farinelli who was very, very successful in the 90s. Recently in the 90s, there was a movie all about him. He was very, very well known. Also the composer Handel. I don't know if you've heard of the composer Handel.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Oh, he did that.
Yeah, that's Handel.
Okay.
Even he wrote operas that required castrati, and he hired the best castrati that were out there. The only one that he didn't get was Farinelli. I think Farinelli, he was big anyway. He didn't really need to be hired by Handel, but Handel did obviously get the best that he could. Right. One by the name of Senesino, who was actually with him for 15 years. So, having high-profile people like that employing castrati, it was appealing, but I couldn't imagine putting your children through that.
No. Just to get a taste of fame and fortune, living vicariously, I guess, through your kids. That's a new level.
Yes, a new level, that is. You're going to resent your parents for sure. That's to say the least.
You disown them.
You would disown your parents. You're not going to have a relationship. You can't have kids.
No.
They were actually banned from getting married because they couldn't reproduce. Your whole life is about reproduction. Your whole motivation for everything is to reproduce, carry on the species.
Yeah, well, essentially, natural selection, sex drive, make kids.
Absolutely. It's the strongest...
The bare minimum,
Absolutely. Strongest driver in the world, and they don't have it. They've got it taken away. They get teased. They're freaks. I could only imagine that most of them, I would have thought, would end it. I could imagine being in that situation. It would be reasonable to want to end it, I would think.
What would you do? You'd have to find something...
You'd have to find meaning, a lot of meaning.
Some sort of... Yeah.
Get a lot of strength from somewhere, I would say.
Yeah.
With the surgery, again, going back to the surgery, they would give them anesthetic, so there'd be large amounts of opium given. So that would knock them out almost asleep. They would remove the testicles. But some of them died from the large dose of opium. If they didn't have opium, they'd use alcohol. Some of them died from the large dose of alcohol. Some of them died from the treatment itself, from the surgery itself.
Yeah.
So just going through that ritual, that surgery, that would mess you up as it is, let alone now living a life with this strange helium voice.
Sex drive's just gone.
Sex drive's gone. Their voices it's not a boy's voice. They grew up very large. They have big chest cavities. And it's not a woman's voice either, because they are men. Again, they've got huge lungs.
Yeah.
It's a high voice, like ooh, like that sort of high voice, but it's in the normal voice I'm talking to you now.
Right, so how do the vocal cords actually work?
This is essentially how the vocal cords work. So just say this is your vocal cords. This is very much what a vocal cord would be like.
Yeah.
It's a thick band. And when you're talking, they're vibrating really rapidly. And this voice I'm speaking to you with now, the whole band is vibrating together. It's what's called full body contact, when it's all vibrating together. But as you stretch them, so if we're stretching the note and it goes higher like that, it gets to a point where it can't go any higher, and it flips. See that falsetto goes into falsetto. What's happening there is it's actually opening like this, and the vibration's occurring just on the edge, almost like a guitar string. It's a very thin vibration, very thin amount of it. So that's how you can get the high note like that. So when you close it,
across the top.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you close it, that's full voice. That's falsetto. That's full voice. That's falsetto. It's just vibrating across the edge there. And that's how you can get the high note. And that's why it doesn't sound so full. It's because it's only the very, very edge of the vocal cord vibrating. Fast forward to 1858. A man by the name of Alessandro Moreschi was born in Italy. He was the last surviving castrato. He sung with the Pope, so in the church with the Pope, like with the Pope's choir, the Sistine choir. When he joined the choir, there was about 7 other castrati, and he died in 1922. That was about the same time that electric amplification and electric recording materials were coming out. So he died right at the same time that you could electrically record someone's voice. If you rewind a little bit further back to 1877, there was an actual recording method called acoustical recording. That was, you would sing or perform into this giant metal cone, and there was no electricity, but it would vibrate and cut out the vinyl or whatever. I don't know what materials they use. I think they used things like wax initially, but there was no electricity. It was just a very primitive way of recording. Yeah, that happened in 1877. They started bringing this technology out. Yeah. And then in 1878 they banned castration. So a year later so they got rid of that. No, Rome said no more castration, obviously. No. It's too traumatic, too crazy. There's no point. A little bit down the track, 1901, the English Gramophone Recording Company, they went to Italy to record a famous singer called Enrico Caruso. When they were in Italy, Enrico Caruso was busy for a few days, so they went to the Pope actually, and they wanted to get a recording of the Pope, but the Pope at that time declined and said, well, why don't you record my Sistine choir instead? And in this Sistine choir was the castrati. So actually there is a recording of the castrato and castrati. Yeah, the most famous one was Alessandro Moreschi, and when they did these recordings, he was kind of like the main figure. And actually now people do still think he's the last castrato, as in he was a solo figure by himself. Not many people realise that he was singing with other castrati. He does choral things where there's other singers in the background. The other singers that were with him, some of those were castrati as well. So there's been several castrati voices recorded.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I've actually got here is actually one of the recordings.
Oh, right.
So I do have Alessandro Moreschi's recording.
From the vault.
From the vault. So this is a very, very early recording, obviously. It has been modified. This particular copy I found, they've removed the scratches to try and make it nice and clear. But one thing I want you to understand, like to keep in mind when you're listening to this, is it's not falsetto. He's not singing like this. He's singing like we're talking right now. So this is his full, true, natural, thick sort of voice.
I see.
Yes. So why don't we have a little listen, hey?
Let's do it.
This is a song you might know called Ave Maria. Yeah.
What a voice.
And how unlikely there is to be that recording too, because it was at a time when they banned castratos, doing it, castrating singers. Right at that time, and he died when an electronic recording was coming, but he was just alive at exactly the time when acoustical recording was coming in, and it was an accident. They went to record someone else. The guy that wasn't available on the day, so they went to the Pope as an alternative, who declined. So if you think about how unlikely it is to have this recording,
that's it.
It's a musical miracle. It's like a rare treasure. It's a rare musical treasure. It blows me away. Listening to that. It's amazing.
Like it was supposed to be just right place, right time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and the music itself, the voice, knowing the nature of the voice, sends chills up my spine when I listen to that. To be honest,
knowing actually where it came from.
And
how it all came to be, and how. Such a voice. I mean, wow.
It's amazing as humans what we do sometimes. It just baffles the mind.